Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. Hello, everybody. We'll be starting this English lesson in about 40 seconds. There we go. In 40 seconds, we'll get started. Again, I'm just going to make sure everything is working properly. I think that it is. Mode saying break a leg in the chat. I'll see what that's how you say. You don't want to say good luck before a performance or something else. So that's the English thing that we say. But yeah, we'll be starting in 15 seconds. I think everything seems to be working great for this lesson about phrasal nouns, which you might be wondering, what is that exactly? Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about phrasal nouns. Now, you might be familiar with phrasal verbs, and you might not be familiar with what we call phrasal nouns. Sometimes they have a variety of names, because in English, sometimes when we have something like a phrasal verb, we'll turn that phrasal verb into a noun. So, for instance, Jen and I sometimes like to get away for the weekend. Sometimes we like to go on a getaway. So the phrasal verb to get away can become a noun called a getaway. And I'll give you a whole bunch of examples like this in this lesson, this English lesson about phrasal nouns. Some will be directly connected to a phrasal verb, and some the connection isn't as clear as you might think. So once again, welcome to this English lesson about phrasal nouns. Hey, before we get started, I gotta straighten my shirt out again. It's for some reason not super comfortable. There we go. That feels better. Hello to Know That, Wanda Prado, Ralph, Mode Eggs, Desh Nanante, Hatai Lewin, Abdul Aziz, Rovo Andres, Freddie Wolf, Hafiez, Judith, Kakachen, Burgett. Scrolling back here, Lolly, Hafiez, Fritz. I'm saying names twice now, aren't I? It'd be nice just to have a list, like an alphabetical list of everyone who was here. If I forgot to say hi to you, I apologize. Let me see here. Is Nightbot going crazy? Maybe a little bit. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. That's why. Here we go. Let me pin that. There we go. If you have a question, please use, there we go. So a few things before we get started. If you are new here and you have a question, there's a link in the description below. You can use that to go to a form and then type your question in. There's also a link in the chat. I have pinned it. It's the same link, by the way. And please use the chat for fun English conversations between each other. One of the side effects of doing live streams quite regularly is that there's a community of people that have started to get to know each other. And I just think it's really awesome. So hello to all the regulars in the chat, and please be kind to all the newcomers. Yes, phrasal nouns. We'll get started in just a moment. Again, some phrasal verbs, like if I said I'm going to hand out tests in my classroom today, the students could call it a handout. So we take the phrasal verb and then we sometimes put a hyphen, sometimes don't, and we make a noun out of it. Should we just get started? That might be the best solution. Hate in the chat says, how is the weather there, Bob? It's actually raining this morning, so we'll bear with it. I've been enjoying the sunnier weather, but here, let me do an audio check. There we go. I noticed that. Here, let me just check something. There's automatic subtitles, but I don't think they're accurate. Yeah, I guess that's just how it goes sometimes. Let's get started. Let me find my controls here and let's get going. A ripoff. So this actually has two meanings, and it's interesting because sometimes people will buy a fancy purse or handbag, but it will actually be a ripoff, and we sometimes call it a knockoff. That means that it is fake. We also use this verb to describe when you get a bad deal. Like in the US, in the United States, eggs were almost $10 a dozen, and that's a ripoff. So this noun can have two meanings. It can refer to a fake item, like this is not a Gucci bag, it's a ripoff or a knockoff. Or you could say, I bought a car from my neighbor and it broke down right away, so it was a ripoff, like a bad deal. So those are the two meanings of ripoff. I've never bought a ripoff or a knockoff, but I know when I go to Toronto sometimes, there are people selling things like this for really cheap, and it can't possibly be real. It's definitely a ripoff or a knockoff. A breakup. So a breakup is something that happens when two people break up. So notice I've used the verb form. If two people are dating and then they don't like each other, they might eventually break up. That's the verb. But we also refer to it as a breakup. Joe is going through a really bad breakup right now. So Joe and his girlfriend are no longer together. They decided to break up, and now they're going through a breakup. So hopefully this is making sense. As I flip from verb form to noun form, hopefully you're getting an understanding. But you can see these two people look relatively sad, and they're not facing each other. So they're probably going through a breakup. They've decided they no longer want to be together. A blackout. So this is a word that we use to refer to a time when there is no power. Sometimes we call it a power outage. You can see that in the picture there. But we also refer to this sometimes as a blackout. We had something called rolling blackouts once when they were fixing the electricity, where we knew that every day for 3 days, we would have a blackout for 2 hours because they were repairing a large transformer. But you refer to something as a blackout when there is no electricity and you have to get out your flashlight in order to see what you are doing. And then there's, of course, an outburst. So you can burst out in laughter, but you could also burst out in anger. So we're flipping the verb form and making a new word called an outburst. This child is having an outburst. I'm going to imagine their parent, one of their parents said, you could no longer play video games. The time is up, and the child is now angry and having an outburst. So they are not happy with what is happening. So they are having an outburst. So again, if you told me a joke, I might burst out in laughter. If you were throwing things at me, I might burst out in anger. And then we use the noun version. We kind of flip it and say it is an outburst. That child is definitely having an outburst. A break-in. So I do have to explain that probably the proper form for most of these nouns is to have a dash in it, but it has become very common to not do that. But some words like break-in still require it. So a break-in is when someone enters your apartment or house in order to steal things. So it is a break-in. So a thief decides that they want to break in. There's the verb form. And then we then refer to it as a break-in. There was a break-in in my apartment building last night. There was a break-in last week at the mall. Someone broke in. So there was a break-in, noun. Someone decided to break in, verb. So a break-in, again, is when someone decides they want to, use a tool or pick a lock in order to get into a place they're not supposed to be and then steal things from that location. A giveaway. So a giveaway is when you give things away. So again, verb form would be, I'm going to give away candy today. But a giveaway would be a little more formal. Like this store is having a contest. They're having a giveaway. If you enter, you could win a gift card and then use that to buy things from that store. So a giveaway is the same as a contest. It's a little bit like, it's like a lottery, but instead of winning money, you win something. So sometimes a car dealership will have a giveaway where they give away a car. So a giveaway is a contest where you can win something. I didn't enter this one. I should have. I could use stuff from the hardware store. A drive-through. So this is another one. First of all, it has two different versions. The top one is like the quick version, and then we have the full version. A drive-through is a window on the side of a restaurant where you can order food or drinks, and then you can pick up the food and drinks. By the way, that truck there is called a pickup. That's another noun. I'll teach that one later. By the way, drive-through doesn't have to have a dash in it. So it can be drive-through with or without it. It can be either version of those. It's usually the top version. So they shorten the word through in order to make it, I guess it fits on the sign better probably. But sometimes in the morning, it's rare, I will go through the drive-through and get a cup of tea and a breakfast sandwich or something like that. So a drive-through, if you go to a McDonald's, if you go to a Burger King, they will most likely have a drive-through. And again, you can drive through the drive-through. So you could use it both ways. Yeah, I try not to go through the drive-through too much because it's kind of expensive. A backup. So if you have a computer and you have important information on your computer, you should make sure you have a backup. So maybe you have a little external hard drive. Maybe you back up to the cloud. I just used the verb form there, but it's important to have a backup. If your computer crashes and you need the information, the person who's fixing it might say, do you have a backup? Maybe we can get your files and information from the backup. So it's always important to have a backup. If you can, you should have two backups. I always have two. I have two backups of every video that I've made because I think it's important. In case one backup fails, I have the other one. So one backup here and one off-site, so somewhere else. But yes, a backup would be when you decide you want to have a second copy of your data, you will have a backup. You will back up your data. There's the verb form. You will back up your data. Carry on. When you go on a plane, you bring suitcases and you have to check some of the suitcases because they're big, but you're also allowed to have what's called a carry-on. You're allowed to take one small suitcase and take it on the plane with you. The last time I was on a plane, Jen and I each had a carry-on. So it's from the verb to carry on, like you can carry it on the plane. And so we've now made a noun to describe these small suitcases and we call it a carry-on. And it has certain size. I think it's actually smaller now for some airlines. I think they've decided that it can only be 9 inches by, forget the exact, is it 9 by 14 by, yeah, I don't know, by 19? Maybe someone knows. You guys all probably use metric, but a carry-on is a small suitcase that you can take on a plane. Brent is actually in Mexico right now, Brent from American English with Brent, and I'm sure that he has a carry-on with him that he took on the plane. A checkout. So when you are done shopping, you need to go to the checkout to pay for the things that you purchased. A checkout is the place where there is a cashier, a cash register, and then you have all of your items scanned and then you pay for them. So again, we can flip with this one from verb form to noun form. When it's time to check out, you go to the checkout. So when you have all of the things you need, when you're in a grocery store, for example, you think, okay, I have everything. I will now go check out. I'm going to go to the checkout. And they are going to tell me how much I need to pay. So a checkout is basically, right by the entrance exit of the store. That's where you go when you need to pay for things. Hey, I think I've done everything right, but for some reason I feel like I forgot something this morning. Everything seems to be working good. There's like 233 people watching and it sounds like everything's working properly. And it looks like there are questions coming in. So I will answer some questions for a bit. That is the plan. Okay, let's see here. Ooh, this is kind of off topic, but I'll do it anyways. Aziz says, hi, Bob. How has AI changed you since you have a good IT background? So AI, probably the biggest effect that AI has had on me is that I have to be extra vigilant in checking that student work isn't made by AI. So that's not how I'm using AI, but that's how AI has affected me. As teachers, we have to be very, very careful because it's so easy for students. Like even in French class, you can just say to ChatGPT, write me a French poem that rhymes about the sunrise and the sunset. And then ChatGPT would write a beautiful poem. In French, one of the giveaways is if there are no mistakes. So usually language learners make a few mistakes. Okay, let me see here. Mode says the size of the carry-on keeps getting smaller because the airlines want people to pay extra fees for their luggage. I think so. Yes, I think they're very, very much want you to pay extra. They want to make as much money as they can. Yeah, let's get to the next question. So from Lolly Lolly, bonjour Bob, are phrasal nouns the same in British English? Merci. I think most of what I'm teaching you today are quite universal. Things like in a grocery store, I think they would probably call it a checkout, although I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure carry-on would be the same. But there's things like if I go to a restaurant to get food, I might get it to go. And I would they might call that takeaway. So we wouldn't use that word in English. We would say, I got it to go. So we would use the verb form. So tricky question. I don't always know the details of what they use over there. I should go there someday, shouldn't I? So from Judith, hi Bob, you chose a great topic as usual. How many phrasal nouns exist? Perhaps you don't know. Have a great weekend. I don't know exactly. All I know is that as I choose topics, this was on the list because during one of my phrasal verb lessons, I realized, hey, we do convert a lot of these to nouns. And so then I did some research and it was like I think they can be called compound nouns or noun phrases or phrasal nouns. You can search all of those. I don't know how many exist. Probably a lot. Let's see. It's like carryon in French, which means a little bell. Oh, yes. Let me see. I'm just reading the chat for a little bit. Andra says, yeah, I could barely fit my stuff in one carry-on in a small backpack for 4 days. LOL. There was almost no space left for souvenirs. That's the hard part. Jen and I find that a carry-on for each of us, and then you can take a small bag as well. That's okay. But then if you buy things, it's hard to fit them in the suitcase. From Mode. Hello, Mr. Bob. Hello, Spring. What's the takeaway from this lesson? Did you know that the Brits also use this noun for takeout? Sorry for the unsolicited info. It's weird that we just talked about that. But yeah, takeout. That's the word I was looking for. We, in my part of the world in English, use the word takeaway to talk about information that you gathered. So if I went as a teacher to a night class, someone might say, well, what was your takeaway? And that means what was the most important piece of information that you learned? And then, yes, in Britain, I think if you get food, it's takeaway from a restaurant. You're going to buy it from a restaurant, but eat it at home. Here, we would call it takeout. I'm going to get it to go. Thanks, Mode, for helping me out there. Let's see here. I think we're good. I think I'm going to jump back to the lesson. Remember, if you have a question, by the way, you can ask more than one question today. I turned off that switch on the form. So if you want, you can go back to the forum and ask another one. I hope it doesn't get out of hand. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that publicly, but let's get back to the lesson. Here we go. A getaway. So Jen and I sometimes we're overworked and we need a small vacation. Jen and I do not go on very long vacations, but sometimes we need a getaway. A getaway is another name for a vacation. Okay. So someone at work might say, oh, I'm so stressed. I have vacation days coming and I'm going to go on a getaway. So a getaway is when you get away. So you literally leave where you are and you go somewhere to enjoy yourself. In Canada, it's very common for people, if they go on a getaway, to go somewhere warm in the winter. You can see a cruise ship in the distance here and beautiful blue water. And it's obviously somewhere warm because he's wearing shorts. So a getaway, the same as a vacation, the same as a trip. A handout. So in my class, I often, before class, will go to the photocopier and make handouts. A handout is a piece of paper, usually that a teacher will give you. Although if you go to a meeting at work, your boss might have handouts as well. So a handout, it has a few meanings, but in this situation, it means a piece of paper or several pieces of paper from the teacher. Now, just so you know, flipping back to the verb form, this teacher is handing out handouts. So this teacher decided to make handouts, and then when he went to class, he decided he was going to hand out the handouts. So kind of fun. You can flip it around, but yes, a handout. We also use this word to talk about free money from the government. Like the government gave that business a handout because the economy wasn't doing well. So it would mean free money from the government. A makeover. I've never had one of these, but a makeover is when you decide you would like to explore a different look and someone will help you. So if I had a makeover, they might say, you should start wearing suits and a tie, maybe grow your hair out, grow your beard a little bit longer, maybe wear a necklace, I don't know, a chain, you might say that. But I'm not interested in having a makeover. This person is getting a makeover, so she has gone to a professional. Maybe she's going to maybe she's going to have her hair dyed or done in a different way and wear makeup that's more complementary to her features and her natural hair color. I don't know. I have no idea. But a makeover is when, you just decide you want a new look. You want to look different. I think I would probably look pretty dapper wearing a suit and tie all the time, especially if it was tailored and really nicely made. But I'm going to just keep wearing the blue plaid shirts and cutting my hair like this for now. I don't need a makeover. A pickup. So this is technically a pickup truck. This style of truck in North America is called a pickup truck, but we have shortened this to just say a pickup. Does your friend have a pickup? Yes. I'm moving next week. Do you know anyone that has a pickup? Because I would love to be able to put my couch in the back because it doesn't fit in my van. So this we call the shortest version of the term is to just say a pickup. But yeah, the official name would be a pickup truck. And then, of course, it's called a pickup because you can use it to pick stuff up. A tip off. If you watch police TV shows or movies, sometimes someone will give the police a tip off. They'll call the police and they'll say, there's a robbery that's going to happen tomorrow at the bank. That is a tip off. When someone phones the police before a crime happens to tell them it's going to happen, we would call that a tip off. And I think this is the only time we use this word in that kind of situation. Like I'm thinking if I was planning a surprise party, I could give my friend a tip off, but I don't think we would call it that. I think it's mostly used. The police must love it when someone calls and says, there's going to be a crime tomorrow at 8 a.m. At the park. Be there. That's a tip off, and they know to go and look for illegal activity. A warm up and a workout. So I didn't know this, but a warm up is what you do before you exercise. Sorry, I knew that. A warm up is what you do before you exercise, but I didn't know, apparently you're not supposed to stretch too much before you exercise. You're supposed to do some mild activity like if you're going to run, you might walk briskly for 5 minutes before you start your run. You might rotate your joints. You might just do some movement to warm up. So when you warm up, you're getting ready to exercise. I was stretching the other day before I played badminton, and then my son said, you're just supposed to warm up. You're supposed to stretch after you exercise. So I need to do a little bit of reading, but this is my picture for a warm up. This person is getting ready to exercise. They are doing a warm up in order to warm up their muscles. And then a workout. So when you go to the gym, you go there to do a workout. This guy is doing bicep curls. I've never used a bar like that. I wonder if that helps. Maybe your wrists are a little turned in. I should try that someday. I don't have one. Anyways, a workout is something you do to be in better shape. It's something you do in order to exercise. So when you go to the gym, you go there to work out, but you go there to do a workout. So you can use the noun form if you want. So a workout, something you do at the gym. And it doesn't just have to be lifting weights. Like your workout might involve running on the treadmill. Maybe you do like a Pilates class, and then you lift some weights, and that's your workout for the day. You go to do a workout. A workaround. So a workaround is like a way of fixing something that does fix it, but it's not perfect. So here's a good example. This person, it looks like the mirror on their vehicle broke. This is not my red van, by the way. The mirror on their vehicle broke. And instead of buying a new mirror, they decided to tape it as a workaround. So they decided to use what we call duct tape to fix their mirror. And that's the workaround. Sometimes at work, you might be on a project and there's a problem, and maybe you can't get a certain part or something's missing, and then you figure out a workaround. You figure out a way to do what you need to do by not having the ideal situation. So this is definitely a workaround. I would probably do this if the mirror broke on my van, because I'm not sure how much a replacement mirror is, but that is definitely a workaround. A kickoff. So at the beginning of some sports games, there is a kickoff where someone does the initial kick of the ball. And we've taken this term and we use it in other places as well. If your business or you're at work, you are launching a new product, you might have a kickoff where it's the first day it's for sale. You might have a meeting to talk about the launch of that new product, and it might be called a kickoff meeting. We use it to talk about the beginning of the school year. We might have a small barbecue for all the parents and students the first week of school, and we call it a kickoff. We're going to kick off the new year. So I flipped from noun to verb there. So basically, a kickoff is the beginning of something. And again, we borrowed this term from the sporting world, kickoff. A flashback. I'm hoping that some of you are having a flashback right now. So a flashback is when you vividly remember the past. When I see cassette tapes and I see a little boombox like this, it gives me a flashback. It helps me remember the past. In the late 80s and early 90s, this is how we listened to music. For me as a teenager, this is how I listened to music. I had a boombox and I had cassette tapes. My brother and my brother had actual albums, and we would record the albums onto cassette. So he had the big black albums, and then we would make what's called a mixtape. So hopefully this is giving some of you a flashback. Some of you are too young for this, but a flashback is a sudden, vivid memory of the past. A checkup. So sometimes you want to know if you're healthy. Maybe something's not right. Maybe you've had your shoulder's been sore for a while, and so you go in for a checkup. Maybe you're going to the dentist because you just need a checkup. You need your teeth cleaned, and you need to have them look if there's any cavities. You go for a checkup. So sometimes people will say this in English. Someone will say, oh, I was gone yesterday. I had a doctor's appointment. And someone might say, oh, is it something serious? And you might say, no, it was just a checkup. I go for a checkup every few years. So a checkup is when you go to the doctor or dentist and they just kind of have a look. They try to figure out if there's anything that you, anything wrong with you. A washout. So this is a pretty major washout. There can be small washouts and large washouts, but this happens when water erodes an area. So this road is closed because there's a washout, okay? This can happen in a variety of places. This can happen on a path in the woods. Maybe there's a path you like to hike and there's a washout, and so you have to kind of, go through it safely. But whenever running, flowing water, especially during a really, really big storm, when it hits a road or a path or any kind of area, there might be a washout where it destroys the road or the path, and then you have to figure out a different way to get around. You need to figure out, you have to have a workaround. A printout. So when a printer prints something, we sometimes call it a printout. We usually use it in this situation. I can send you a screenshot, or I can send you a picture, or do you want an actual printout? And then the person might say, oh, could you bring me an actual printout? Sometimes at work, if you print out something on really big paper, if you have a printout of it, it's easier for people as a group to all see the information. So sometimes for my class even, I think, okay, I think I'm going to make a printout of this, and I'll make like a poster size printout, and I'll put it on the wall so more students can see it at the same time. So basically, whenever a printer prints something, we call it a printout. And you can also use the verb, right? I'm going to print this out so that I have a printout, a permanent copy of it. Hey, let's go to members only chat mode. Let me get that set up. Let me find the button to do that. And if you are a member, you can ask questions directly in the chat for a little bit. I'm going to just double check. There we go. Everything is working, and I will continue to answer questions, of course, from the forum. Let's see, from Kuso. Excuse me, Teacher Bob, how can I differentiate which noun phrases can be separated and which can't be separated? So noun phrases are never separated. Phrasal verbs can be separated, but if all of the nouns that I'm teaching you today cannot be separated, he's going through a breakup. There was a blackout. I drive a pickup. The police got a tip-off. Those are all those are words, and they cannot be separated. Phrasal verbs can be, and I should do a lesson someday on that, how to separate them. This is from Gabby. Hello, Teacher Bob. Does carryon must be written as one word, or can we split it to carry on? Thanks. As a noun, it's carry on as one word, or carry on with a dash between the Y and the O. As a verb, it separates. So to carry on is the verb form. It is then two words. So a little tricky, a little hard to understand how that works. I'll do one more question and then I'll jump to the chat mode again. This is just to make sure I can ask more than one question now. Also, did you hear about the new community feature on YouTube? It's only released in beta though. Sorry, off topic. I have, and I don't have it yet. So I'm waiting to see. Usually on this channel, on my large channel, I get a lot of the beta features early, but this is one that I haven't seen yet. Maybe I should ask my YouTube rep to see if I can have access to it. That'd be fun. From Know That. Hello, Bob. What are your plans for this weekend? Do you have anything special on your to-do list, or do you just kick back and relax a bit? Thanks, Bob. So we have a couple things planned. I have a kid coming home from university. I had two kids in university this year. So one came home last weekend. We have to go and get the other one this weekend. So that's one plan. And then it's raining now, so we probably won't be doing much on the farm. But we do have a few little chores here and there to do. But I am looking forward to, I think by Sunday, I can just relax a little bit. From the chat again, Hafia says, nice haircut, Bob. Thank you. I decided not to get a full makeover. I just got my hair cut the normal way. Wanda says, hi, Teacher Bob. Which one is correct? Burst out. Okay, so it's burst out laughing. Okay. You could say burst out with laughter. So I'm, and it's not very nice, but both of your phrases are incorrect. So yeah, so it would be burst out laughing. Oh, he told a joke and everyone burst out laughing, or everyone burst out with laughter. Those would be the two. Thanks. Have a nice weekend. You too. Know that says, I'm not sure if I've asked you this before, Bob. If you could explain the meaning of to be a day late and $1 short and give a few examples of its usage. Thanks a lot, Bob. So when you're a day late and $1 short, it simply means you're not, it doesn't always relate to time. It relates to being willing to do something even though it's not the right moment. Okay. So for instance, I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to think of an example. I'll have to look one up. It's not a super common phrase. I'm trying to think the simple example is like you're late for work, but you still do the job. So you're a day late and $1 short, but that's not. It's just used to describe a situation where it's not ideal, but it's still happening. Let's get a good example from the internet. Example of a day late, $1 short. You will hear this phrase in movies and stuff like that. Yeah, like someone wanted to buy concert tickets, but they were sold out. So they were a day late and $1 short. But, we use it more metaphorically than that quite often. Hopefully that makes sense. Going to move on here. Moan says, I wish you all the best. Oh, is he replying to someone? Yeah, let me scroll back to see. Maybe I don't see it. Monica says, I love Bob's videos. However, I'm focusing on mastering more British accent with Lucy's courses in English. Yeah, that's kind of the downfall of we can't all be universal teachers. And so as much as I would love it if you watch my videos, I don't have a British accent. So it's important to focus on the one you want. Let's see here. I think there's many music stores that sell them nowadays. Oh, you guys are like talking. Very cool. In US, a takeout, a parking lot. In UK, a takeaway, a car park. Am I right? I think so. But again, I'm not an expert on British English. No, that says, thanks for answering my questions. No problem. John says, hello. Hi, John. Good to see you. John Wedge is here. It's a pretty niche hobby. Cassettes with a Sony Walkman. Back to the old days. Yeah, I remember when my friend got the first Walkman. I was I was 13, 12 or 13 probably. And he wouldn't let me listen to it. I just wanted to hear what it sounded like. So, okay, let me go to the forum and get a question on the screen and have a slurp of water, a sip. Kaka-chan, hi, Teacher Bob. How can I express I'm not okay when someone says, how are you to me? And is it rude? Just curious. Have a nice weekend. So when you work with people, when people aren't your family or friends and they say, how are you? And even if you're not okay, you would just say, fine, how are you? I know it sounds like you're lying. You only would really answer how you're really feeling. Like if Jen says, how are you doing today? I would tell her exactly how I'm feeling. If a coworker said, how are you? If I don't know them well, I would probably just say, fine, how are you? If it's a coworker I've worked with for 10 or 20 years, I might actually say how I'm feeling. So it's hard to navigate, a little bit tricky. Helix, hi Bob. Is the word connected by a dash also considered a phrasal noun like guilt tripper? Or my example is wrong and you don't need the dash. So this is the tricky thing. A lot of these you can put the dash in or leave it out. I think they've become like informally we've removed the dash and it's become normal. But some of them, a few of them you still do. But if someone guilt trips you, if they are a guilt tripper, I think it probably needs the dash in it. I'm just guessing there. John says, to keep from losing the habit, don't forget to give a thumbs up. Yes, that always helps me. Thank you for that. Peanuts says, what is the professional and next level word which we could use for hard to control? Thanks. Well, that's interesting. If you're talking about people, we would probably say hard to manage. Like if I was a manager at work, or if I was a boss and I had a worker who was difficult, I would probably say they're hard to manage, or challenging. We use the word challenging a lot in English. We just say, if someone said, what's it like working with Joe? It's challenging. That's probably it's kind of a vague response. What's it like? It's challenging. Dimitri says, good day, Teacher Bob. A kickoff, is it like a brainstorm? No, a brainstorm, like if you brainstormed, you would do that earlier. A kickoff is when like you're ready to start something. Like then you're going to have a kickoff. So again, a sports team that's starting might say, we're going to have, it's probably a bad example to use a sports team, but we're going to have a kickoff Tuesday night to start the new season. So that would be how I would describe that. Ooh, now we're getting some repeat questions. What is the professional word that we could use for the connotation of hard to control? Again, if you're talking about a person, you might just say they're difficult to work with. From Ruslan, Teacher Bob, your lessons are a total breakthrough. Every class is a step up from the rest. Thank you. A real standout in the world of teaching. There's 3 in there, isn't there? There's 3 phrasal nouns in there. Breakthrough, step up, and standout. Thank you for that. Hey, I'm going to turn off members chat and get back to the lesson. If you are a member, you can continue. I think I answered all of your questions, but I'm not 100% sure because, as you know, I love it when I see a lot of chatting. There's a lot of chatting going on. So I was trying to sort out the questions from the chatting, but all good. Vitor is here and says hello. Good to see you, Vitor. Let me just have a sip of water here and we will finish this off. Here we go. That's not the slides. This is a build-up. There are 2 pipes in this picture, and one pipe has a buildup. So sometimes when your sink stops draining, it's because there's a buildup in the sink. Maybe you put a lot of grease and food waste, and maybe you put a lot of things down the sink that maybe you shouldn't have, and now there is a buildup in the pipe. You can also have this in your veins and arteries, more likely in your arteries, where someone will go and get their heart checked out and the doctor will say, you have a lot of buildup in your arteries. You can also have a lot of buildup on your teeth. We have something called plaque that forms on our teeth, and you can have a lot of plaque and we'd say, oh, there's a lot of buildup. So this is the best visual example. The pipe closest to me has no buildup, and the pipe far away has a lot of buildup. When the buildup eventually closes the pipe, though, we call it a clog. The pipe has a clog. An outcry. So when people are really, really upset, they will sometimes protest. There will sometimes be an outcry. So let's say the government said taxes are going to go up 10%. There would probably be an outcry from the public. They would protest. They would write letters to the newspaper. They would write letters to government officials. There would be an outcry. It basically means a whole bunch of people all annoyed at the same time and then doing something about it. The last time there was public outcry in my area, it was because, I'm trying to think, I think it was during COVID. When the first lockdown, there was an outcry, like people just didn't want to stay in their houses. So an outcry is when a lot of people get upset at the same time about something. A hangout. So verb and noun, if you want to hang out, you might go to a hangout. This might be their regular hangout. So people, we say people are creatures of habit. People like to do the same things all the time, most people. So let's say these 4 guys are friends and they all work at different places. But every Friday they go to their regular hangout to just sit and talk and eat some cheese, it looks like. So a hangout is an informal term to refer to a place where you meet with friends quite regularly in order to hang out. You go to a hangout to hang out. A setup. So you can see behind me, well, it's kind of dark, but that's my setup. So we use setup to talk about, you can use it to talk about your regular, if you work at a desk, then you have a regular setup. You have your laptop and maybe you have a tablet and pictures of your family and a mouse and a keyboard, and that's your setup. As a YouTuber, I also have a camera. That's part of my setup. And I have a light over here. I can turn the light off. It gets very dark, but ooh, I'm super glowy. So the light, the camera, the computer I'm using, this is part of my setup. And then again, you can go to the verb form because I set up this desk because I needed a work area. So this is my setup. A tune-up. So sometimes your car isn't running well. Maybe it makes funny noises. Maybe something's wrong with the engine and you might go to the mechanic for a tune-up. So the mechanic will make sure that all cylinders are firing. He'll probably check to make sure there's no buildup in some of the hoses. I don't know if that actually happens with cars, but a tune-up is when you take your car to a mechanic so that he can make it or she can make it run smoothly and really, really well for you. Because you don't want a breakdown. So a breakdown occurs when your car stops working. If you're driving along and all of the sudden the engine starts to sputter, like it starts to turn off and on, and then you pull over to the side of the road, we would call that a breakdown. And then you would call a tow truck and say, yeah, hey, my car broke down. So that's the verb form. I'm on the side of the road and I have a breakdown. Can you come and get me? Can you come and pick my car up and help me? A breakaway. So a breakaway is when in a sport, someone has the puck or the ball or whatever, and they are ahead of everyone else. They're ahead of their entire team and the entire opposing team. When you get a breakaway in a sport, it means there's no one between you and the goalie. There's no one between you and the net. There's no one between you and it's just you and the keeper and the goal, or you and the basketball net, or you and the hockey net, and you're on a breakaway. And hopefully you have the skills needed to score a goal. So this we would call a breakaway. It's very common in hockey. It's not always common in every sport. But yeah, you get the ball or the puck and you just go. You're the only one. Hey, let's finish some. Yeah. Freddie Wolf says, Bob won't run out of water today. It's a huge red glass. It'll last for a long time. I brought the big cup today for sure. Yes, I brought the big cup. It's worked really, really well. Okay, I'm going to finish off questions. I don't think there are very many. And then we'll wrap up this lesson. Let's see. From Ralph. Bob. Hi, Bob. Related to flashback, déjà vu and flashback, are they different or related? Yeah, they're different. We also use these French words, but they are different to our flashback / memory. Okay, so déjà vu is when you have a moment where you feel like what just happened has happened before. It's like a really weird feeling. And the French déjà vu translated to English means like you've already seen it. Like it's something that's already happened. So déjà vu happens to me maybe once a year where it's like, I feel like I've done this before. Whereas a flashback is like a vivid memory of the past that might be triggered by something. They'll also they'll do a flashback in a movie. Like the person in the movie might all of a sudden have a flashback, and then they'll show you, scenes from when they were a child. That's a common use of it as well, a flashback. Hey, there's no more questions. So let me just check the chat here. A car breaks down in the middle of a crowded street. I leave the car there and run. That's what Vitor says. Happia says, if my car breaks down, I will also break down. Yeah, you can use it that way too. A person can have a breakdown as well. And then let's see. mode, continuing to learn other languages. Very cool. I think that's it, everybody. Unless more questions pop up in the next little bit, I'll have a sip of water. I'm just scrolling back through the chat to see. Oh, Hao Huang says, what day do you usually go live? Most regularly Friday mornings at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So this time slot is when I most likely go live, about 45 times a year on Friday. Sometimes the time shifts by an hour, depending on what part of the world you're in, because we have daylight savings time here. And then sometimes my schedule changes and I do it a little bit earlier. But yes, I go live Friday mornings. And then once a month, I usually go live on a Saturday. Let's see here. Monica says, in fact, I don't mind that Bob doesn't speak British English because I listen to different accents and it's good to comprehend different accents from all over the world. That's true. Yes, that's from Monica, who was mentioning that she's trying to perfect her British accent. Wow says, a guild tripper is someone who joins a guild, a group in a game, but only for personal gain without contributing to the group's effort. Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying guilt tripper. When you guilt trip someone, it means you make them feel guilty. But a guild tripper would be someone like if you're playing World of Warcraft and you just jump from guild to guild. I could see that. Unibi says, sorry, Mr. Bob, due to being late, I wasn't very active today. Hope this lesson will be able to see on Sunday morning as usual. Yes, I've noticed that an interesting phenomenon, but the number of live viewers is usually around 250, 350, somewhere in there. It used to be about 400. But the number of views on the lesson, the shorter version, has gone up in the last year. So I think more people are watching the shorter version, but I still like doing these. Anyways, on that note, this lesson, for those of you that don't know, I will edit this lesson. I will remove all of the viewer questions so that it's just a pure lesson with all the slides from start to end. And that will come out. You should watch that one more time or listen to it. It will really help you perfect and remember the words you've learned today. The other thing is you can watch portions of that re-release with the subtitles on, and that can be quite helpful as well. Just a good thing to do. Let's see here. Question from Elena. Oh, hi, Elena. Hello, Bob. The topic today is brilliant. Can we use Breakaway somewhere besides sport? Little fix there. For example, speaking of a career or family plans. The verb form, maybe yes, like I'm going to break away from this company and go work somewhere else. But as breakaway, like he's on a breakaway, it's very much just a sport term. Yes, for sure. From Dimitri, good day. Another one, Teacher Bob. Tune up and tuning, is it the same? Thank you for your work. Sort of, although tune up makes me think car engine. He's going to get a tune up. Tuning makes me think about a guitar. He's tuning his guitar. You can tune an engine, it is a little bit, but the majority of the time, tune up will refer to a car engine and tuning will refer to a musical instrument. That is what I would say. Okay, folks, let's wrap this up. Lucas says, hello, Bob. What's the difference between lawyer and attorney at law? I think they're the same in Canada. I don't think there's much difference, but I'll probably be corrected on that at some point in time. Samantha says, I would like to know what is the best way to learn phrasal verbs. Learn the ones you can act out and find videos where they are acted out. I have a really, really big mega lesson on phrasal verbs. Let me find a link. Bob the Canadian mega phrasal. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah. So this link, I'm going to put it in the chat. Phrasal verb lesson. So in that mega lesson, I try to act out as many phrasal verbs. You should watch that lesson and act them out yourself, like do the actions. Because when you act out and say the word out loud, you'll have a better chance at remembering. Know that says, bye, Bob, you're awesome. See you. Everyone's starting to say bye. Hafia says, thanks for the interesting lesson. Have the greatest weekends of all. See you in the next one. Bridget saying bye. Freddie saying, I built an Excel chart about more than 200 words, which are different between the UK and America. And it's crazy how many there are. There are like torch and flashlight and lift and elevator and flat and apartment. Should I do a whole lesson on that? Maybe I should at some point. Okay, that's it, everybody. I'm wrapping this up. Have a good day. Bye. I should say bye to everyone, right? Bye, Lolly Lolly, John Wedge, Al Gore, Wanda Prado, Freddie Wolf, Ralph Unabi, Know That, Mode Eggs, Hua Huang, Judith, Vitor, Hafiez, Freddie Wolf, Bridget, Al Gore. This is the point where I'm starting to say names twice, right? It's been fun. Kaka Chen, Judith, Natasha, bye to everyone. Have a good